I remember texting my mom saying, I can't do this anymore. I told God, you feel the pain of my heart. Me and my child are ruining this family. And I said, I know, my God, you're protective of me. You'll get me out of here. That was my last night.
Behind the scenes of one of the largest Christian ministries, a fierce battle is raging, one that threatens to reshape everything the network was built upon. What drives a mother's fierce determination to block her own son's leadership? And how does this family conflict draw lines between legacy, loyalty, and dark allegations? A man who once held Jonathan Lamb as a newborn now finds himself at the center of a dramatic reversal that has left insiders shocked. What was once a cry for reconciliation quickly turned into denial, revealing the deeper struggle for control inside Daystar's silent corridors. The hidden blockade to Jonathan's leadership. At the heart of the Daystar controversy lies an invisible wall standing between Jonathan Lamb and the leadership role many say was rightfully his. Despite being the son of the network's founders and reportedly named as successor by both parents, Jonathan has faced persistent opposition that has kept him from stepping fully into this position. The pushback isn't rooted in simple family disagreements, but seems to be part of a carefully maintained strategy to sideline him entirely. This creates a deep paradox. The man most expected and prepared to lead is systematically excluded. What makes this blockade especially complex is the subtle interplay of power and influence operating behind closed doors. Jonathan's exclusion is not simply about personal animosity. It's tied to larger fears and stakes involving the survival of reputations and control over the ministry's future. The obstacles he faces are created through formal actions like board decisions, private conversations, and legal instruments that have quietly reshaped the leadership landscape. For those watching closely, the signs are clear, but cloaked in layers of corporate maneuvering. The origins of this resistance stretch back years, with moments that reveal growing tension between Jonathan and other key figures within Daystar. He has been described as unprepared in certain board meetings, even though this narrative conflicts sharply with his upbringing and the expectations set by his family legacy. The issue goes beyond mere readiness. It reflects a battle over who gets to hold the reins and whose vision for the ministry will prevail. Those involved have used everything from non-disclosure agreements to personnel appointments to reinforce the barriers keeping Jonathan at bay. What adds to the puzzle is the stark contrast between public messaging and the hidden realities. While Daystar projects unity and strength, inside there are fractures that threaten to alter the ministry's trajectory. Jonathan's supporters view him as the rightful heir to a legacy shaped by his parents' decades of work, while others appear determined to rewrite leadership succession quietly. This unresolved conflict is simmering beneath the surface, promising to erupt once the conditions align. The full dynamics remain concealed, waiting for the moment when the key players' intentions become unavoidable. Yet, the key to understanding these tensions lies not in the surface disputes, but in the deeper motivations driving them. Jonathan's path has been obstructed not only by those who doubt him, but by those fiercely defending their own positions and protecting other interests. This includes some who fear the consequences of Jonathan reclaiming influence, consequences that extend far beyond internal boardroom politics. The decision to hold him back represents a struggle over power, legacy, and a potential reckoning that could change everything. Despite the significance of the opposition, there has been little transparency or public explanation for Jonathan's sidelining. As observers sift through limited statements and occasional leaks, the complexity of the situation becomes even more apparent. Those blocking Jonathan's advancement wield authority quietly but effectively, controlling narratives and suppressing challenges. Their moves hint at a carefully orchestrated plan that prioritizes preservation of the current leadership structure over honoring prior commitments to Jonathan's involvement. Although these efforts are far from overt, their impact is undeniable. Jonathan's exclusion reverberates not only throughout Daystar's leadership circle, but also among its broader community of supporters and viewers. Many are left wondering how and why the rightful successor could be pushed aside, fueling speculation and concern. The situation raises difficult questions about accountability, transparency, and the very heart of leadership succession in a ministry that reaches millions. From hidden obstacles to personal shifts, the story now turns to the figure who has witnessed the Lamb family's journey firsthand and whose shifting loyalties have had a profound impact on Jonathan's fate. Tom Callender's shifting loyalties. Tom Callender is no ordinary board member. For 4 decades, he has been deeply woven into the fabric of the Lamb family and the Daystar ministry, tracing back to the very moment Jonathan Lamb entered the world. He stood at Marcus Lamb's deathbed and was present through pivotal family and ministry milestones. His unique proximity has given him extraordinary insight and influence, placing him at the center of both history and power struggles within Daystar. Despite this long-standing trust, Tom has not been a consistent supporter of Jonathan's leadership. Several moments reveal his sharp turn, from the man who once cradled Jonathan as an infant to one who told him, "You are in no way prepared to be a leader." His words go beyond assessment. At one point, he even compared Jonathan to the spirit of Ahab, a biblical symbol of rebellion and opposition. These harsh judgments contributed to the barriers Jonathan faced inside the organization. Tom's influence extended beyond words. He introduced the non-disclosure agreement that pressured Jonathan to sign or be stripped of his vice presidency, reinforcing the formal exclusion from leadership. Moreover, Tom exercised board authority in ways that tilted power, appointing a new board member mid-session during the conflict and approving questionable disbursements without oversight. Actions like unilaterally gifting ministry funds to Joni Lamb for her honeymoon reflect an embedding of trust and favoritism that further marginalized Jonathan. However, the most dramatic chapter in Tom's story came following Joni Lamb's death, when his loyalties appeared to waver under pressure. An anonymous source reached out to him, hoping to facilitate reconciliation between Jonathan and Susie Lamb ahead of the funeral. On that call, Tom reportedly broke down in tears, telling the source he had been waiting for the phone call and that Joni's latest wishes were for Jonathan to receive Daystar's leadership. His emotion revealed a man carrying a heavy secret, seemingly ready to honor the founder's last requests. Yet only 2 days later, Tom reversed course. He sent a text demanding a correction, denying he had shared any information about Joni's wishes. This sudden retreat stunned insiders and exposed a deeper force at play, one that pushed Tom to rescind his initial openness. The catalyst behind this reversal has been linked directly to Rachel Lamb Brown, a powerful figure whose influence has shaped Daystar's inner workings profoundly. Tom's vacillations reveal the intense pressures within the ministry's leadership circles, pressures that pit personal loyalty against organizational control. His unique position grants him insider access few enjoy, but with that access comes vulnerability to competing agendas. In this context, Tom has become a pivotal actor in the story of Jonathan's blocked ascent, capable of either gatekeeping or unlocking the doors of leadership. His story is a vivid illustration of how deeply intertwined personal dynamics and governance decisions are within Daystar. Tom's history, relationships, and decisions continue to shape the ministry's direction, and his unclear stance leaves many questions unanswered. The walls built around Jonathan's leadership ambitions are directly linked to a determined effort by Rachel Lamb Brown, whose protective strategies shape much of the conflict. Rachel Lamb's protective strategy. Rachel Lamb Brown's name rises repeatedly when tracing the forces working to exclude Jonathan from Daystar's leadership. Her resolve is not born out of sibling rivalry or family arguments, but out of a deep fear. Jonathan represents an existential threat, not only to the power Rachel has cultivated, but also to the safety of her husband, Joshua Brown, who faces serious accusations. This fear has driven Rachel's actions to systematically push Jonathan out of the ministry's inner circle. The core of Rachel's protective strategy centers on shielding Joshua Brown from potential accountability. Joshua faces allegations concerning their daughter, and although the case is currently closed, it remains open to future investigation if formal claims arise. Jonathan and Susie Lamb were the ones who brought these allegations forward, creating a fault line within the family. Rachel's maneuvering serves to maintain the status quo, where the case remains dormant, and Joshua's position secure. Her influence is not wielded alone. Rachel reached out to Tom Callender, a man with decades of authority and trust in the ministry, to shift his stance against Jonathan. His dramatic reversal from openly acknowledging Joni's last wishes to denying them appears to have been driven by pressure originating from Rachel. This move exemplifies how Rachel has skillfully used relationships and influence to reshape Daystar's leadership decision-making. Rachel also orchestrated a swift power consolidation shortly after Joni Lamb's death. Without public announcement, she and key allies gathered to claim leadership roles through a symbolic communion and laying on of hands. This ceremony provided a spiritual veneer to a tactical grab for power, excluding Jonathan entirely, despite his parents' reportedly clear succession plans. The implication is that Rachel is not just protecting a position, but actively constructing a new ruling structure. Her protective strategy extends beyond simply blocking Jonathan. It involves surrounding herself with loyal allies. Arnold Torres, known for advocating peace at any cost, and Steve Wilhite, previously a spokesperson for Joni, both aligned with Rachel, have been anointed to leadership roles. Together, they form a front that resists truth-seeking in favor of preserving existing power. This alliance demonstrates how Rachel's tactics ensure control stays within a trusted inner circle. Critics argue this approach sacrifices justice, transparency, and the ministry's original mission. The use of spiritual language to justify these moves has been challenged as a cover for self-interest and suppression of legitimate grievances. With the leadership circle realigned and power quietly seized, the story now turns to the events following Joni's death. The quiet power grab. After Joni's death, the days following Joni Lamb's passing were marked not by mourning alone, but by swift, decisive moves among those vying for control at Daystar. Without any public notice, a core group of individuals assembled to claim leadership at the ministry. This gathering included Rachel Lamb Brown, Arnold Torres, Steve Wilhite, Tom Callender, and Darius Johnston. What they did was more than a simple meeting. It was a symbolic act sealed by communion and the laying on of hands, traditionally sacred gestures in Christian leadership, now repurposed into a power statement. This small group committed to monthly communion services together, establishing themselves as a governing body. Such an act, while spiritual in appearance, served as a declaration of authority and unity among them. Notably absent was Jonathan Lamb, the founder's son, who many say was supposed to inherit the ministry's leadership. Even more conspicuous was the fact that Jonathan was not contacted or included, reinforcing the culture of exclusion that had shadowed him for years. The ceremony itself took on deep significance. By sharing communion and laying hands on one another, the group wrapped their authority in spiritual legitimacy, implying divine approval for their leadership. However, this move sparked criticism from observers who saw it as a deliberate tactic to cloak a corporate power grab in religious ritual. It was a moment where faith language intersected with political maneuvering, raising questions about accountability and true spiritual oversight. In the eyes of many, this newfound leadership represented a sharp departure from the intentions of Daystar's founders. Marcus and Joni Lamb had reportedly identified Jonathan as the successor, setting a clear vision for the ministry's future. Yet here, in a closed room laden with symbolism, that vision was quietly overturned. This altered power structure hinted at deeper divisions and raised concerns about hidden agendas within the organization's upper echelons. The roles of those present also reveal much about the nature of this power shift. Arnold Torres, despite his long friendship with the Lamb family, has been described as someone who prioritizes peace over confrontation, often advocating for getting through challenges without digging too deeply. This approach sometimes translates to overlooking difficult truths in favor of maintaining harmony. His acceptance of this new leadership role signals a willingness to stand behind Rachel and those aligned with her. Steve Wilhite's presence is equally telling. Known as a loyal defender of Joni, Wilhite often spoke out publicly against Jonathan, echoing the family lines that painted Jonathan as unfit for leadership. His elevation from spokesperson to a core leader within the ministry illustrates how faithful obedience to Rachel's agenda has been rewarded. This pattern reflects a ministry culture where loyalty and usefulness can surpass qualifications or moral integrity. Even as the new leadership took its place at the table, shadows cast by unresolved and serious allegations loomed in the background, complicating the ministry's path forward. The shadow of allegations. One of the most troubling elements underpinning the power struggle at Daystar involves serious allegations against Joshua Brown, Rachel Lamb Brown's husband. These accusations relate to the couple's daughter and have been a source of tension and division within the family and ministry. Jonathan Lamb and Susie, Joni's daughter, were the ones who brought forward these concerns, setting off a chain of events that directly impacts who can or cannot lead the ministry. Although the formal investigation into these allegations has been closed without charges, the case remains open to reopening if the child makes a formal report to authorities in the future. This fact has significant implications not only legally, but also for the ministry's leadership and its public image. The possibility of future revelations creates stakes that extend beyond boardroom politics, touching on matters of justice, protection, and accountability that cannot be ignored. Rachel Lamb Brown's efforts to safeguard Joshua Brown's position stand out as a central motive behind the exclusion of Jonathan from Daystar's inner circle. Jonathan's leadership and access to the ministry's resources could bring renewed scrutiny and potentially open doors that might lead to accountability. To prevent that, Rachel's maneuvering appears determined to keep Jonathan at a distance, effectively using the shadow of these allegations as leverage. This dynamic creates a deeply troubling reality where the pursuit of power within a faith-based organization intersects uncomfortably with efforts to suppress difficult truths. The welfare of a child, the possibility of justice, and the integrity of the ministry become entangled in a broader contest for control. Such a situation places Daystar's leadership under intense pressure to reconcile faith with transparency. Adding to the complexity is how spiritual language and rituals have been used by those in power to justify their decisions. Communion services, laying on of hands, and declarations of spiritual covering have served as shields to deflect accountability. Yet, many see this as a distortion of true spiritual leadership, where personal protection eclipses the pursuit of righteousness and justice. Critics argue that allowing a child's story to be used as a bargaining chip in this corporate succession fight is the ultimate violation of Christian ethics. It raises urgent moral questions about how power is exercised and at whose expense. These concerns resonate deeply within the broader faith community, which watches as sacred responsibilities become overshadowed by political survival. Behind the orchestrated power moves and denied truths lies a question of destiny. How this family saga aligns with timeless themes of judgment, anointing, and what God has truly ordained. The unseen hand of destiny. Throughout this family and ministry conflict, the words of Joni Lamb to her son Jonathan echo with profound significance. "The Lord will judge between you and me." This statement reflects a deep biblical narrative, one that resonates with the ancient story of King Saul and David, the anointed successor who faced opposition despite God's clear favor. Joni's invocation of divine judgment suggests that beyond the human drama lies a spiritual reckoning that transcends boardrooms and power plays. The parallels to Saul and David are striking. Saul, once king, spent his final years trying to destroy David, God's chosen heir. Yet, despite all opposition, David ultimately inherited the kingdom. This story reminds us that what God anoints cannot be permanently suppressed by mortal authority or personal agendas. In the Daystar situation, this biblical backdrop frames Jonathan's struggle not merely as a family dispute, but as a spiritual battle over what God has ordained. The power moves by Rachel Lamb Brown and her allies, including the exclusion of Jonathan and the secret communion service, can be seen as attempts to control that destiny. They wrapped their claims to leadership in spiritual language, yet many question whether these acts honor God's will or merely human ambition. The tension here highlights how easily religious symbolism can be co-opted to justify political maneuvering, raising urgent questions about true spiritual authority. At the heart of this spiritual drama is a call for truth and transparency. The Apostle Paul's warning in 1 Corinthians 11:27-29 about partaking in communion in an unworthy manner strikes a chilling chord. Paul speaks of judgment that comes swiftly upon those who claim authority without righteousness. This scripture resonates with Daystar's situation, where leadership claims shadow unresolved issues of justice and suppressed truth. The story also reflects the enduring tension within ministries between legacy and reform. Marcus and Joni Lamb's vision for Daystar represented decades of work and faith, yet the unfolding power struggles threaten to fracture that legacy. History shows us that true legacy is not preserved through secrecy or silencing rightful heirs, but through integrity and courageous leadership, willing to confront uncomfortable realities. God's hand on Jonathan is described as having been present since before his birth, before even Tom Callender held him in a hospital room. This assigns a weighty sense of destiny to Jonathan's journey, one that no legal agreement, no reversed text, and no orchestrated power grab can erase. It is a reminder that divine purposes operate beyond human schemes. Today, we've uncovered a complex struggle of power, legacy, and faith within Daystar's leadership. Jonathan Lamb's fight is more than family drama. It's a spiritual battle over truth and destiny. As this story unfolds, remember to seek transparency and justice in all things. If this deep dive resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more insightful content. Thanks for watching.